What is going on, gunfighters? Today we're going to talk about the HK V.P.9, and depending on how long that goes, maybe the P30, but mostly the HK V.P.9. I'm going to try something a little bit different. Recently I did one on just a Walther PDP. Maybe these episodes on a single thing will do pretty well, so we'll see. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The HK V.P.9 is a pretty good handgun, and it stands out even in a world that's flooded with polymer striker-fired handguns. There's some things that make it really good, which we'll get into. So, welcome to Gunfighter Life, where we talk about guns and gunfighting the right way, with God Almighty at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Well, let's get into talking about the HK V.P.9. Again, the world is flooded. Our American market, we live in the golden age of defensive handguns. There are so many good options. When I first became, let's say, a concealed carry, because before that it was a military, and I was issued what I was issued in the military, and I was a police officer, and I was issued what I was issued as a police officer, and I could buy my own things. But when I started teaching, handgun instruction really opened me up to how many guns there were. And, decades ago, there wasn't a lot. You had Glock, you had, for concealed carry, the CAR, like the PM series. You had the old Walther PPK, which by today's standard is kind of laughable. There really wasn't anywhere near as many options as there are today. There's so many good options. But even in a world of good options, the HK V.P.9 stands out. The HK V.P.9 is the new, and I say new, it's been around a while, but it is HK's modern striker fire handgun. It's not by any means HK's first handgun. They've been making good handguns for a long time. The USP was a standard for a large chunk of time, but the HK V.P.9 is their kind of modern polymer striker-fired handgun. Now, HK is known for really good quality handguns, and this certainly is one. HK is known for really good quality guns in general. Really good steel, really good quality control, really, really good. And again, this handgun is no departure from that. They are made really, really well. I have quite a bit of experience around the HK V.P.9. In my different roles and my different things that I've done, but I've never actually owned one. I've never actually purchased one. Just not anything wrong with them. By the time they came out, I was pretty heavily invested in. I transitioned from Glock to Smith & Wesson M&P in my competition shooting, and I settled on Smith & Wesson M&Ps for a long, long time. So I just never owned one, but people that I knew and respected, professional gunfighters, seeing them in classes, seeing them, with clients and things like that, they're good guns, the HK V.P.9. So I'm on the HK website itself. I'll kind of go down and just talk about some of the things. Okay, aesthetically, let's just be real. It's a good-looking gun, right? Most people, even that love Glocks, would probably admit that the Glock is not the most attractive gun. This is an attractive gun, and beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? But I think most people would think that this is a good-looking gun. That has nothing to do with how it shoots, but it's a good-looking gun, and it also has very practical aesthetics, like the slide serrations, both forward and back. If you've never dealt with the HK V.P.9, it has something fairly unique. It has tabs inserted into the rear slide serrations. This is really nice for being able to rack the slide, and you might think, big deal, I can rack the slide anyway. But if you're wearing gloves, if your hands are really cold, wet, bloody, those wings are kind of nice. If you have to rack your slide, let's say you're running the gun one-handed, your right hand is out of commission, and you have to clear a malfunction or rack the slide on your belt or on a table. That's pretty nice. And again, it's not just aesthetics, it's a real world application. Those tabs are a nice feature. I'm kind of surprised you don't see this on more guns. But a really good feature there. It has a really good modern Picatinny rail on the bottom. And just also the ergonomics. So much like a Smith & Wesson M&P, which actually has really good interchangeable like back straps that actually do something to change the ergonomics, unlike the Glock, which I think were just put there after the M&P to say, hey, me too. Kind of part of that whole me too, I have some kind of modularity. But like the Glock Gen 4s and Gen 5s, they're nowhere near as modular as far as changing the grip like a Smith & Wesson M&P, and I would say this one takes it even to another level, because not only does the back strap interchange, it also has side straps that interchange. I guess the side strap would be the right vernacular for it. It has different panels. Panels is probably the right word. It has different panels also, so you can even make it kind of asymmetrical to fit your hand, which is really, really nice. And I've dealt with these before. The ergonomics on these, for me, are really nice. Now, it does have some finger grooves on the front. I really don't like finger grooves, but they're not crazy finger grooves. They're nowhere near as pronounced. Nowhere near as pronounced as like a Glock Gen 3 or Gen 4. So I could live with them. I'd rather them not be there, but they're not bad. 17 round magazines. I think the older ones may have had 15, but the new ones have 17 round magazines. Here's the thing too. They have really, really good sights out of the box. Not like a Glock or even the Walther PDP we talked about. As far as good sights out of the box, it has some of the best. I'd say even better than Smith & Wesson M&Ps out of the box. They have really good sights. The new ones are optics ready. Now the older generations are not going to be, because they came out before that mounting optics was a popular thing. But the new ones are optics ready. So if you're looking for a good polymer striker fired, optics ready. Now, if you're not familiar with HK, kind of their shorter pistols are kind of called the SK. They also make a more compact version if you wanted like the Glock 19-ish size, that compact size. And this is going to be reading some, not the entirety of what they say on their website. Every detail, including the grip angle, the contour of the front strap, the high rear saddle, were chosen to fit the human hand. And the adaptable grip frame allows you to interchange both back straps and grip panels. And 27 unique configurations to fit your hand. That's a lot. That's pretty cool. Now, it says below this, best in class trigger. That's a subjective thing, but here's what I will tell you. It has a really good trigger. I'd have to have them and do the Pepsi challenge, blindfolded, Walther PDP versus a 320 versus a HK V.P.9. They're probably some of the best out of the box. Oh, and the Canic Rival, to be fair. Those are some of the best out-of-the-box polymer striker fire triggers. But this one's definitely in there. The HK V.P.9 is a really good polymer striker fire trigger. Now, I denote the polymer striker fire. It's not great as far as overall handgun triggers. But as far as a polymer striker fire trigger goes, it's in the top 5. It may be in the top 3. It may be the number 1. I'd have to do the Pepsi challenge on that. It's hard to beat the 320. And here's the thing that even Glock has gotten away from. Polygonal rifling, or polygonal rifling, depending on how you pronounce it, your vernacular, what part of the country you're from, or world you're from. But it says hammer forged polygonal bore. Now, HK makes good barrels. And they really do have good barrels. I haven't owned one of these. I've owned an HK handgun before, and it was a good quality handgun. But polygonal bore. Now, polygonal rifling, which you'll find in the Gen 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Glocks, but they have gotten away from it. They don't do it in their Gen 5s. And there are some advantages and disadvantages to the polygonal rifling. And without turning this into that whole... I could do a whole podcast on just different riflings and handguns, which may be interesting and may be way too nerdy for some people. But a quick flyover. Polygonal rifling has some advantages. It gets less dirty. It goes longer without needing to be cleaned. It's generally easier to clean. Downsides, you're not supposed to shoot cast lead bullets out of it. Now, that's not a big deal for most people, for most situations nowadays. However, if you reload your own ammunition or think you might in the future and you're going to cast your own lead bullets, which is a whole nother step. I did that growing up. You're going to cast your own lead bullets. It's not advised. You can do it. I'll be honest. I've done it. But you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to, right? You're not supposed to shoot cast lead bullets out of polygonal rifling. Can be done. You're not supposed to. I think it even says in the manuals that you're not supposed to. But that is one issue with them. Another thing you might put it in the positive or negative. I have heard, and I'm not a forensic scientist, I have heard that it is harder to ballistically match barrels to bullets with the polygonal rifling because you don't have those precise cuts like you would have with traditional land and groove rifling. Right? Traditional land and groove rifling leaves really distinct markings in a bullet that you can match bullet to barrel. Polygonal rifling is not the same. It has these kind of waves. It kind of looks like a rolling wave inside the barrel. It accomplishes the same thing. It spins the bullet. It gives that gyroscopic stabilization. A fancy way to say it spins the bullet, but it doesn't leave those pronounced grooves. How true that is or not, I don't know, but the fact that it does not leave as pronounced grooves on the bullet, you may put in the positive or negative. As far as accuracy goes, I think that mostly has to do with the quality of the barrel, not so much the design of the rifling. The Glocks are never known for being super accurate, getting on the Glock thing, and they used polygonal rifling for a long time, and I'd say the Gen 5s are more accurate. I don't know if that has to do with the design of the rifling itself, but I think if you really good premium quality barrel, polygonal rifling has some distinct advantages. I think a good quality premium made barrel and a good quality premium made gun can be super accurate. Although the Glocks with the polygonal rifling were never known for being that accurate, I think the HK USPs, which preceded the HK V.P.9, use that same polygonal rifling, and they have a stellar reputation for accuracy in a handgun. Let's get a little nerdy here. 9x19, length 7.34, height 5.41, width 1.32, which is pretty good. That's a pretty good dimension to know if you're going to conceal carry it. If you're open carrying, it doesn't really matter. Sight radius 6.38, that's pretty good. Weight 25.56 ounces. That is really good. I like carrying a full-size fighting handgun. For a full-size fighting handgun, that is a good weight. So, some good specs there. Now, if you want a little bit more sight radius, you want a little bit bigger gun, they have the HK V.P.9L. L, I assume, stands for long. I mean, it's a different country, but I assume that stands for long, and it certainly is a longer gun. It's the long slide version, which I generally like, a 5-inch barrel. I consider a 5-inch barrel a full-size gun. I would consider what most people consider a full-size, like a 4.5. I consider that a compact gun, but they make a full 5-inch, like a 1911 size barrel in the HK V.P.9L. And then the OR denotes optics ready. But if you're looking for a competition gun or want a full-size gun, that's a good one. They also make the HK V.P.9 SK, short Kurtz, I assume is what the K stands for. In that language, Kurtz is Kurtz is a common thing used. Just means short. I assume that's what the K stands for, although I don't know. And that's got a 3.39-inch barrel. They also make the HK V.P.9 Tactical. If you want to be an operator, man. You're not cool unless it says tactical, right? So the HK V.P.9 comes, it looks like, with a threaded barrel, which is pretty cool. A barrel length of 4.70. It's going to be longer because it stands out and it's threaded. So they come with a threaded barrel. It comes optics ready, it looks like, at least the new versions. And it comes with the suppressor height sights. Now, I like suppressor height sights, not for running a suppressor. I don't generally see them as very practical on a handgun. Get mad at me if you leave some hate mail if you want. But going around CCWing your handgun with a giant suppressor hanging off the end of it, or you know, as a cop in your duty gun carrying a giant suppressed handgun in your holster, or if not, and you get into a CCW altercation at your 7-Eleven, and you're like, hold on, let me screw on this suppressor, give me 3 to 5 minutes and I'll be ready for a gunfight. So yeah, not super practical on a handgun, also throws off the balance, so not really great for training either, in my experience and opinion. However, it does have suppressor height sights, which are really nice if you're going to throw on an optic, because generally when you put on an optic, you can't co-witness with regular height sights. In general, there are some exceptions. The suppressor height sights let you co-witness. For me, if it's not just a fun gun, if it's a fighting handgun, it's a go or no-go for me. I want co-witnessed iron sights. If the dot is not there, then I can use the iron sights. If it's in some kind of lighting condition where I can't see the dot, the sights are there. If I'm doing some kind of weird, unconventional thing, like I'm laying on my side, shooting one hand only with my non-dominant hand, you know, in an urban prone, laying on my side, shooting under a car, which is stuff that happens. And my natural point of aim is just not there because that's not something I practice all the time. I can use those iron sights to guide into my dot. For all those reasons, and the redundancy of having two different sighting systems, I like co-witness iron sights. The HK V.P.9 Tactical, it has that. Oh, and they even make it in 40 cal, if for whatever reason you want 40 cal. Now, why might one choose this gun? Well, here's the thing. Here's where I think it shines. You might just want it because you really want a good polymer striker-fired handgun. It certainly is that, and it's just the one that tickles your fancy the most. But here's a couple of things where I think it shines. If you're just the kind of person that is going to buy a gun and take some training classes, a hard use gun meant for duty use that's going to stand up to hard use and abuse, and you're the kind of person that just is going to buy the gun, shoot it a lot, train hard with it, and you just want to take it out of the box. You're not the kind of guy that likes to finagle stuff. You're not the kind of guy that's going to spend hours on a polishing stone just making that sear interface just super shiny and beautiful. You're not going to put in an aftermarket trigger. You know, you just want to get a gun out of the box and have it have good sights, a good trigger. You might change the back straps on it, right, because to fit your hand. Don't be that lazy unless it just happens to be that configuration. But probably not. Probably you're going to want to change the back straps. But if that's as far as you're going to go and you want to take it out of the box and run it, it's a good choice. It really is. Because it comes with good sights. It comes with a good trigger. It comes with a lot of good features. Like you're probably not going to have to go get it stippled like you would a Glock and do an aftermarket stipple job and change your grip angle and all that stuff because it has that out of the box. So if you're the guy that wants to accessorize and do a bunch of aftermarket stuff, probably Glock or the 320 is your platform. But if you're the guy that wants to just take a gun out of the box and run it and have it be a good gun, good trigger, good sights, the way that it is, this is a good option. Also, let's say, you know, I work for LAPD. If you've listened to the bio, you probably know that. I work for LAPD. This is a department like that where they have several guns on the roster. Assuming this gun was on the roster, they let you run different guns. And you might be able to change the sights out, but usually they don't let you do any kind of internal modifications. So your department, your agency, whatever, they don't let you do anything to the gun, right? That's just a thing. They don't let you do anything to the gun. So you've decided you want a polymer striker-fired handgun, and you can't do anything to the internals, like LAPD, let's say, and this gun is on the list, you may decide you want to run this gun. You've decided, you know, LAPD to let you run a 1911, but I don't want to run a 1911. I want a polymer striker-fired 9mm. I don't want the 509, which I would say is good for you because I don't particularly like that handgun. I think this is a better one. And you decide to go with the HK V.P.9. It's a good choice for that because you don't really need to do any modifications. It's good to go. And Here's the thing, though, and they also make the HK45, which is not quite the same, but it's very similar if you want a big 45, but it's a hammer-fired gun. But here's the thing of why I personally probably wouldn't choose it. I would rather have a P30. I like hammer-fired guns. I like the P30 system and the P30L, and I even like the older USPs. But the P30 and the P30L, look at those. Unless you have to have a polymer striker fire, I actually like hammer-fired guns better. I like the triggers better. I like the operating system better. I like the manual thumb safety. That's just me. Call me a Luddite. Call me whatever you want. But as good as a polymer striker fire trigger is, I don't think it's as good as a good single action. And the P30, unless you get some kind of law enforcement modified one or the older HK USPs, they have a really cool operating system. You can carry them cocked and locked, meaning hammer back, safety on, like a 1911. I like that. I like single action only trigger pull. I like that system better than polymer striker fire. So they have that. And it's very, very similar to the HK V.P.9, but with a hammer. I think they came out with the striker fire because they're so common today that people they just gravitate towards striker fires now. But you may also look at the P30. All the things that I said about that generally will apply to the P30, except it's not a striker fire. It's a hammer fired, which is, I really like that. But with that, I guess that'll pretty much wrap up this episode on mostly a single model of handgun. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know if you do or don't. I think even if you don't plan on buying an HK V.P.9, knowing about these kind of guns, maybe to help recommend to a friend or to somebody else, it may be useful. Maybe you just like hearing about different guns. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode on the HK V.P.9. If you enjoy this podcast, hopefully you're liked and subscribed or following the show. And maybe you want to rate the show, give it some stars. And if you really want to become part of the tribe, consider becoming a patron. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. With that, the tactical tip of the day. Now for the tactical tip of the day, hopefully you're dry firing routinely. Something to work into that routine is not just shooting standing offhand, and offhand means unsupported, not with your other hand, but standing offhand is how you should probably do the majority of your handgun practice, because that's the majority of situations you're going to be in. But don't only practice that. Practice kneeling. Practice shooting getting into and out of kneeling. Practice your prone. Practice your urban prone. Practice supine, being on your back, because a lot of fights end on the ground. You might find yourself on your back. Practice those positions too. I'm not saying you have to do it every time you dry fire, but you should work that into your routine. Practice. But if you're on your back and you have a target on your right, target on your left, you should probably know how to deal with that before you actually get in that situation in real life. Things like that. So practice the more unconventional handgun shooting positions, both kneeling and prone. I think prone's a really underutilized handgun position, and there's technique to it. But if you know how to do it properly, you can wring a lot of the same advantages out of shooting handgun from the prone that you can shooting a rifle out of the prone. Now, a handgun's not as long range or accurate as most rifles, but you still get a lot of advantage in shooting from the prone. Again, so practice those more unconventional handgun shooting positions. That's your tactical tip of the day, your tactical verse of the day. From Psalm 7, O Lord, my God, in you I put my trust. Save me from all those who persecute me and deliver me. That's just the first part of Psalm 7. What a beautiful, beautiful couple of verses there. O Lord my God, in you I put my trust. Save me from all those who persecute me and deliver me. That was so good. How about a little bit more? How about from Psalm 4? But know that the Lord has set apart for himself him who is godly. The Lord will hear when I call to him. Be angry and do not sin. Meditate within your heart on your bed and be still. Thanks for listening, men. and have a blessed day.